Hey guys, my name is Clay Shuman, and I want you guys to imagine with me the biggest city that you can think of, with tons of skyscrapers, a bunch of taxis driving around, people covering every inch of the sidewalk. Well, I lived in a bigger city than that, and that was New York City. I want you guys to imagine, you got the city picture, I want you to imagine me walking home in that city. And as I was walking home, I was hit in the back of the head with something. I didn't even know what it was, but I was hit so hard that it knocked me flat on my face. And I fell flat on the ground. And all of a sudden, people were kicking me on my side. They were punching me in the face. They were going through my pockets, and they were taking my wallet with all my money. They took my cell phone. They even took my iPod away from me and left me there with nothing. I was bleeding. My face was bleeding. My hand was bleeding. I was bruised all over the place. And I tried to get up after they ran away. And I tried to stand up maybe just a little bit so I could walk home, so I could go find help. And I just fell right over because I was so hurt. As I laid there, just waiting to feel better, people were walking by me. And a lot of people kept on passing by me and even looking at me. And I could even catch sometimes their glimpse into my eyes. And as they walked by me, some of them were so close I could reach out and touch them. And some people didn't even bother to look. And others would look me directly in the eyes and realize that I was hurt, that I was bleeding, that my stuff was all over the place, and that something had happened to me. And one person even looked at me right in the eyes, and I could reach out and I could have touched their foot. And as they looked down and they looked right at me, I thought, this might be a person who's going to help me. And instead, they walked over my backpack, walked over all my stuff, and walked over me, and kept on walking, just leaving me there. Well, I finally felt a little bit better, and my head felt a little bit better because I got hit, and I was able to stand up and walk the rest of the way home. When I got home, my neighbors were outside, and I walked up to them, and they could tell that something had happened to me, that I was bleeding. I couldn't walk straight. I couldn't talk very well. I had no idea what just happened, and I had no way of calling the police because I got my cell phone taken. And they were out there, and they gave me their cell phone to use right there in that instant to call up the police. And they waited with me while I waited for the police to come, and they were there even when I got back from talking to the police. Well, that night, as I sat in my apartment in this big city, feeling incredibly alone because nobody would help me. As I sat there, I wondered why nobody decided to come and help me pick up my things. Why nobody saw me bleeding and decided that they were going to come and maybe give me a Band-Aid, or maybe just help me sit up, or maybe even just give me a drink of water, or why nobody saw what happened and decided to run and go find a police officer. How come every single person walked right by me? And as I sat there, I felt alone in the city where there's so many people. And remember the city with the taxi cabs and with the people all walking around. And these people were walking around me, and I was the one laying down, and nobody was helping me. And I felt so alone, and I felt very sad. But I remembered that I had my friends who were my neighbors who let me use their phone to call the police officers. And how nice and how gracious that was. I went to bed that night, fell asleep right away because my head hurt so bad. I fell right asleep. The next morning I woke up, and I lived on the first floor of this apartment building. And I woke up to a bunch of people banging on my window, trying to wake me up. And I had a whole bunch of my friends standing outside of my apartment. And they came in and they took me out to breakfast that day. At breakfast, they all pulled out their own wallets, and they pooled together as much money as they possibly could all together so that they could make up for what was taken from me. Another person gave me their iPod, and they didn't have an extra one. They gave me their own iPod so that I could listen to music now when I wanted to. And it made me so happy, just the fact that people cared about me, that these people who weren't there cared about me. I was wondering, why weren't they there when I was hurt? Why weren't they there when I was laying on the ground? And so I thought about it, and what would I have done? Would I have walked by somebody who's laying on the ground because I was too scared to help them? Would I think that I can't do anything to help them? Would you guys help somebody who was like that? Would you guys help somebody who was hurt, who got their book bag thrown all over the place in the snow because a bully did something to them? But even more, would you help out the bully if the bully was in need of help?